So I've decided to come here to give you a little bit of a change of scenery because I know a lot of you guys are actually missing the classroom. I've been reading in your journals that actually you kind of miss being here, so I figured why not shoot our class here for a little bit so you can get a little bit of dose of the building. I can't actually go inside because it's all locked up, but at least maybe if you guys get to see it, you'll enjoy this. Oh man, there it is, guys. There's our classroom. Oh, don't you miss it. I know I do. Oh geez. So in case you're wondering what's going on at NBCC, literally nothing. There's no, well, there's cars off in the distance. I'm not really sure what they're doing, and maybe they parked to walk, but the other one here, it's kind of creepy. So you had two main things that you were actually working on this week. One was plays, we'll start there probably, and the other thing we were working on was diversity in children's literature. So the majority of the diversity stuff that you've been exposed to has been from the read alouds I've shown you and a couple of those TED Talks that we've looked at. But let's start with plays. So when you're thinking about plays, I want you to maybe take yourself back in time. Go back to when you were in elementary school. Let me share a story from when I was in elementary school so you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So I remember being in, I think it was maybe second or third grade, and I'm pretty sure they were doing an Abraham Lincoln play of some kind, and I was absolutely dying to be part of that. So going back to that time in my life, I remember distinctly really wanting to have a part in that play. I really wanted to, actually at the time I thought it'd be great to be Abraham Lincoln. To be honest with you, when I was that age, I sucked at pretty much everything, so I would have been a terrible Abraham Lincoln. But I would have been thrilled to even been one of those people just standing there wearing a hat of some kind just to be part of the experience. It was something that I really kind of had inside me that was a passion of mine. Unfortunately, I always happened to be in the classes who never participated in anything like that, so I never got to do any of those. I really wish I could go back in time and find a way to make it happen for myself, but I never had the opportunity. And it's been so long, I can't really remember if it was just the fact that my class wasn't doing it, because I know a lot of classes specifically did it, but also, like going back to what I was saying before, I was also terrible, so I would have been really good anyway. Let's say I had been the type of learner who wasn't really interested in books, didn't necessarily want to get in picture books, but if I knew that I could participate in a play of some kind and you gave me a script, and I knew if I went through this and I got good at this and I got these lines down and got out there, I'd have the opportunity to participate in this play. It's one more way to get children engaged in literature. But on the flip side, let's talk about what's going on here, because when you're reading a play, if you're anything like I was, that feels so different than reading a novel or a picture book. It's a very, very different format. And keeping track of what's going on is actually really interesting, because as opposed to a novel where you're paying attention to who's speaking based on different cues, in a play it literally will have the person's name and then you'll have the lines and there'll be the descriptors about what's going on. So the scene that is actually being created in your head, it gets set up much differently, or at least set up differently because of the format that you're seeing it being delivered in. So when you get a chance to take a look at Peter Pan, which will show up in folder 3, I want you to really think about what visualization is showing up in my head versus, let's say, a novel. And also understand that when you're reading a play, the visualization doesn't show up the same way as a novel because it's not necessarily intended that way. A novel is intended to create that picture in your head. A play is designed so that you can read what's going on. But to really bring it to life, we need to experience it. So since we aren't going to have the fun of being able to actually participate in a little mock play in the class, which is something I usually like to do, I threw a little Easter egg in the plays folder for you so you can see some kids actually acting out a play, and they're actually from an ASL elementary school. So I think you're going to absolutely love it, because I think it also goes with the theme this week of diversity as well. But as I've said before in the class when we're actually in person, there's a lot of different things that can get a child engaged in literature. And going back to history, a lot of what was given to kids has actually been forced on them. Whereas if you look in today's world, there's lots of different options. They have the picture books, they have comics, they have novels. There's many different things to get engaged in. This is just one more way to find something that kids can get really excited about. But let's switch gears and talk about diversity for a moment. If your experience was anything like mine growing up, you probably went to a high school where everyone was pretty much like me. I didn't have a lot of diversity in my school. You could probably count the number of people who went to my school on one hand that weren't a white person. So I wasn't exposed much at all to diversity. And then going back even further and really thinking about the types of books that I engaged with when I was young, really all of the characters looked like me. They were little boys and things like that. And obviously there was animals and stories that Dr. Seuss had that really break the mold a little bit, but to find anything that really focused on another group of people was a little bit harder to do. And I can't really think back to that point in my life when I saw a lot of those things. And it wasn't until later on I started to be exposed to those. To be honest with you, it wasn't until I got to my master's program at SUNY Oswego and I took this class at the master's level, which is so hard. You think you guys got it bad with reading. We used to read 3 novels a week and about 180 pages a week just in the textbook. It was unreal. Anyways, back to this. It wasn't really until I was in that class that I started being exposed to and seeing that there were those things out there, whether it had to do with other cultures, whether it was people from other cultures, people from the city. I really got to see that there was a lot of really good stuff out there. But in the grand scheme of things, you also have to understand that my professor went out of their way to try to find these books to expose us to them, because the majority of books still being written today tend to have a little boy that looks like me. Well, if they don't look like a little boy, but you get the idea. If I shrank. So the good news is, if you're looking for this stuff and you're hunting for this stuff, it is out there to go find. But I want you to really think about why this is important. Like, is it really important? So I've tried to think of a way to make an analogy for you so that you can kind of put yourself in these shoes. And I want to completely preface this with the fact that my analogy is terrible. So this is my 2012 Honda Fit, and you can tell it is raspberry blue. And if you've been watching the video, I also have a hot pink shirt on. So if you can already tell, I like fun colors and exciting things. I don't like gray cars or silver cars or white cars or black cars, even though I have a white truck, but I don't like that. I like things to be fun. I want to be able to find it in the parking lot, and I like my car to stand out. I like to stand out in this way. So when I'm driving along the road, I never see this thing. It's very rare to find this car because not many people want an obnoxious raspberry blue car. But what happens when I do see someone? It's only happened like 3 times in 8 years, but what happens when I do? Oh my God, hey, we have the same car. Yes, I'm so excited. Oh yeah, she runs good. Oh yeah, well, I got the stick. I was really excited about the color. How'd you end up with the car? Oh, your grandmother got a new car? And she gave you that one? Oh. All right, you have a good day now. So anyways, like I said, that was a terrible analogy. Absolutely terrible analogy. But you get the idea. You get really excited when you see something that's familiar to you or something that's important to you. If someone grew up with an identity of some kind and they really didn't have very many opportunities to be exposed to people that were like them, when they finally do see it, there's a connection that gets created. So you want to think about that. I know that some of you actually want to be teachers someday, and it's really important for you to think about the students you have in your classroom and what you're going to be exposing them to. Let's say, for example, you are in a rural district and a student moves into your classroom and they happen to be from a family that has, let's say, immigrated here from India, or they've immigrated here from China, or they've immigrated here from South Africa, wherever it may be. You're going to want to find some stories for your classroom that has people like them in there so they can identify with that. They can realize that they have value and they can connect with those stories. I want to thank you guys for the feedback I've been getting in the journals. I've had a lot of positive feedback from you guys about things you've been liking. I've been trying to tweak things based on what you've said, and there are a couple of changes this week as well, so let's get into that. One of the questions I got a couple of times had to do with the reading, because remember when we were in class I would give you the slips and that would be a reading for next week. But with the current format, you often have a couple of weeks going on at the same time, and I think some of you are getting confused because it would be the same way. If it was Monday, I would assign you a reading that you'd be doing for next week. From now on, I'm going to be putting on there what you're actually doing for this week and the reading you would do for the week that you're currently in, and I've got the slip as it always was. Under that, it's going to show the stuff for next week. Other than that, I have a couple of updates for you. In the coming weeks, we're going to be switching gears ever so slightly, not necessarily with the format of the class, but I'm hoping to get into a couple of things that are a little bit more fun now that we're moving away from a lot of the technicalities in the class. Do something that's a little bit more fun for you guys as sort of like a reward for you doing such a great job so far. So be looking out for that. Probably not next week, but maybe the next week I'm going to try to do as fun of a class as I possibly can for you guys. And again, that's a thank you because you've been busting your butts and doing a great job. One more thing, I've been putting a lot of thought in, and when you guys did the survey back in the day, a lot of you indicated, actually almost all of you indicated, the vast majority of you, maybe 80+%, said that you'd be more interested in doing a final paper than a final exam. So probably what I'm going to end up doing is giving you an option, but I'm just giving you a preview and a pre-warning. You probably want to choose the exam. Why should you choose the exam over this paper? Because a lot of you guys might dread exams and maybe you have test anxiety. Well, you're at home, so it's all going to be open book. You're going to have the opportunity to look back at anything you've done before. And as long as you've actually been engaging in this class and doing stuff, you're going to absolutely love the final exam because you're going to know the stuff. You've been doing the things you're supposed to be doing, you'll be able to do fine in the exam. So it's not even something I feel like you should even have test anxiety for. In fact, I'll let you check it out, take a look at the exam before you decide to do the final paper, so you can jump in whenever you'd like to, and if you don't like the exam, you can go ahead and do the paper. I'm 90+% positive that you're going to choose the exam over the paper. It's in the end going to be better for you. It will take less time. Paper is going to take you a long time to write, especially if you're not a super fast typer, but if you know the stuff, you're going to do great on the exam. So I hope that this finds you well. I hope that your family is healthy and everyone is doing okay, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon.